Hello, everyone, and welcome back to NCOIL One-on-One. With us here today is Utah Representative Jim Dunnigan, Chair of the NCOIL Joint State Federal Relations and International Insurance Issues Committee. Representative Dunnigan, thank you so much for joining us for this month's NCOIL One-on-One interview.
My pleasure, Patrick.
So let's just hop right in. I wonder how you first got involved in public service.
So it goes back a number of years. I was driving around my city at the time, I say, oh my gosh, that pothole needs to be fixed, or those signal lights on the streets are not timed and we're, wasting people's time and polluting the air. And the police presence isn't very strong. And so I like this area, this community, but somebody needs to do something about it. And then after complaining for a couple of years, I thought, all right, maybe I need to do something about it. So I ran for, at that time, it was a community council. It was part of unincorporated Salt Lake County in Utah. And I got elected. And so I did that for 5 years. And then our area decided to incorporate and become a city instead of remaining part of unincorporated county. And so I ran for the first city council and was elected, and we started a city of 60,000 from scratch. So I did that for 6 years, and I got tired of the knuckleheads at the state capitol and thought somebody needed to go and help them along. So I ran for the state house and got elected, and this is my 21st year in the house.
Wow, that's awesome. So you've served on both the state and local level. How do you think those different levels of government kind of differ with your service?
I loved my service on the city council. We had 5 city councilmen. And so that's a majority is 3. So if I could get 2 other city councilmen to go along with me, we could do stuff. It's a big difference. We have 75 representatives in the state house, so I need 37 others to go along with me. But I do like the state, and I like the big variety of issues. Rural Utah is different than urban Utah, and we're a fairly big state geographically. And so we have issues from all over the state, and they're so different, and I just love learning, and so I enjoy it. But I'm really glad that I have a background in local government.
I'm sure that's definitely very helpful working on the state house now. So you mentioned how big Utah is, very geographically diverse. Are there any issues you think serving the legislature are very unique to Utah?
Well, we have one that's quite unique in that we have an inland sea. We call it the Great Salt Lake, and it's a terminal lake. So water comes in, no water exits. And so it's got high salinity, you can float like a cork, as they say, because of the salt. And we're in a 20-year drought now in the Western United States. And so that Great Lake is diminishing, and it's uncovering areas that have been formerly underwater. And there's concern with dust that's coming up and heavy metals that might be blown in the air. So along with much of the West, we're trying to address the drought. We do have this significant body of water that is unique to Utah. And we mine minerals, rare minerals out of it. And it produces a lot of different extractions for us, but we're very mindful of it right now.
Awesome. So what issues would you say are your main issues you focus on right now in the legislature?
In the legislature in general, for me personally?
For you personally, let's go with that.
Okay, so for me personally, I'm working a lot in the behavioral health space. We have a great need for mental health treatment, substance use treatment. And over the last number of years, I've kind of migrated in this space and trying to provide facilities and treatment and funding, and I serve as a volunteer in the Salt Lake County Jail with my wife. And I put in probably 20 hours a week, every week doing that. I've done that for 7 years now. And we love doing it. And so we take guys, most of them are in for substance use issues or mental health issues. And we try to help them create a plan and get them a safe place to live and find felon-friendly jobs. And so that volunteer work has complemented my legislative work. So I've gotten involved in the behavioral health arena, and transportation issues are very interesting to me. Utah has a growing population. Percentage-wise, we were the fastest growing state in the last decade. And so we have a lot of people coming here. So all of you listening, I hope you like to live where you're living, because we have plenty here already.
20 hours a week, that's definitely a grueling schedule, I'm sure, on top of everything else you're doing. But I'm sure the volunteer work, that's awesome. It sounds like it's definitely giving you some good perspective that you're using to make a difference.
It has.
So moving on, how did you first hear about NCOIL and how many years have you been involved?
So I'm guessing involvement of 7 to 8 years, and I heard about it. As I recall from another legislator who was telling me that he was going to this insurance conference, and when he said insurance, that my ears perked up because I am very interested in that. And so I did a scholarship, maybe 2 different times, and really enjoyed attending and the breadth of issues. And it was nice to get together and just talk about insurance. I know for many people they probably avoid that. I know my colleagues, when I stand up each session to present the insurance department bill, they start crawling for the doorways and the exits, but I find it interesting.
So I know that you also own an insurance agency professionally. How do you think that experience, working directly with consumers, kind of impacts, I guess, how you approach the legislature? And then I guess it definitely probably perk your involvement on NCOIL as well.
Well, it definitely helps. I own a small insurance agency, and we specialize in employee benefits, and we do life insurance and Medicare supplements as well. But when we're talking about insurance issues, it's real easy for me to think about real life and real world experiences that I've had with my clients, because I've done it for 40 years now. And I can see how the things that we talk about will impact them for good or for bad, and hopefully help them. And so it's really nice. I could just bring that experience to my NCOIL work.
That's great. And so how would you describe your overall experience with NCOIL throughout your pretty extensive involvement?
I have enjoyed NCOIL. I think it's very positive. I think there's a lot of divergent views, which I think is good. I think we need to have that. But at the end of the day, we work together. There's not a whole lot of yelling and screaming and food fights going on, but it doesn't mean we always agree on everything. But one thing I like about NCOIL is they make a real effort to get a broad range of support or non-support for issues. They don't just focus on, okay, let's bring somebody in who's against this issue, or if they try to have a balance, and I really appreciate that.
That's great. Are there any issues you want to see NCOIL take on throughout the rest of 2023?
I want to work on the fire insurance issue a little bit. I raised that at our last meeting. That's a real issue for the Western U.S. with the fires and fire insurance and how, and so that's an issue. I'd like to work on that. And I'd like to see us work on health share ministries again. We did, I think, a few years ago. I think that's worthy to take another look at.
Yeah, I know you were the one that brought the wildfire issue into the NCOIL world, so I know a lot of people that sparked a lot of interest with, so that's great.
It sparked a lot of interest.
That's for sure. It sparked a lot of interest. There you go. That's a good one. So do you see, are there any takeaways you've had throughout your time with the organization?
I like the professional. I like the welcoming, and really, I like rubbing shoulders with other legislators from all across the country. That's what I really like. It's because it's easy to get focused on issues that impact our own state. And then now we see, well, if we take this into this state, how's that going to impact them? And so, they just say, well, this is going to impact us differently, perhaps negatively. And so it's good. You have to take that into consideration.
Nice. Do you see any benefits for maybe non-legislators, industry, consumer representatives that you would attend the meetings?
So I think the non-industry representatives, including consumer reps, definitely need to be involved. Number one, we need to hear their voices. And number two, they need to know what we're doing and what we're working on, because we're going to impact them. These are legislators. These are state policymakers from throughout the country that are coming together, and we're going to take back some of this model legislation. So they need to participate. They need to come and have a voice.
Nice. So in Utah, do you see partisanship having an effect on legislation surrounding insurance as much as we see with other issues, or do you think it's kind of less so? How do you think that works?
There is partisanship around insurance. Let's take health insurance, for example. Let's say there's one party that wants to have a lot of coverage mandates. They want health plans to cover this and this and this. Ultimately, that's going to raise rates. And so then maybe there's another party that wants to let the market choose what's going to happen instead of the government choosing. So some insurance issues are really bipartisan, and then there's some partisanship, particularly in healthcare.
Interesting. Do you have any favorite issues or model laws specifically that we've discussed throughout your time with the organization?
One that comes to mind, and this was a few years ago, it was the unclaimed property that states had and that they were using. And it's curious to me because Utah has quite a tidy sum in our unclaimed property, but it was curious to me that some states take that money and they build it in as part of their state revenue for their budget each year. Utah does not do that. And our interest that flows off of that is all distributed for the benefit of our public school kids. But I really enjoyed that. And I think Utah has one of the best systems. And I've actually helped some family members navigate unclaimed property in other states. And so I've seen how some other states have done it. But that's one that, we worked on that. It's peripheral to insurance, but I thought it was very, very interesting.
That is really interesting. So naturally, we discussed some of the positive things about NCOIL, but of course, there's always things that can improve. What do you think are some steps you'd like to see going forward that you see that NCOIL take up?
Well, I think the maximum meeting length should be like an hour and a half. Sometimes our general session to go 2 hours, and that's a stretch. So I think you can keep people's attention for maybe an hour and a half, and then we need to move on to something else. As far as other concerns, I have to say, I think the staff does a great job of coalescing the issues, and they're so prepared. They really are prepared. So I'll try to think of another complaint, but I don't have one right now.
All right. Well, you can circle back if you think of it. So now we're going to move into our lightning round, just help the audience get to know you a little bit better. And on a lighter note, can you tell us your favorite all-time movie?
I would say Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Great choice. Favorite food?
Ice cream, no question. That's my favorite food group is ice cream.
There you go. A lot of flavors to choose from, so you got to call it a full group. Favorite book or author?
J.R.R. Tolkien.
Great. Favorite song or musical artist?
Neil Diamond, Sweet Caroline.
Favorite TV show?
This goes back a few decades, but All in the Family. Don't see it anymore, but it was ahead of its time.
Nice. All right, and then last question, 3 dinner party guests, living or dead?
Well, I would do George Washington, Ronald Reagan, and my dad, who's passed away.
There you go. Those are all fantastic choices. All right, well, this wraps up this month's NCOIL 101 interview with Utah Representative Jim Dunnigan. Representative Dunnigan, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Patrick.